I think we probably should just get started. So welcome everybody. My name's Jack Lavin. I'm president and CEO of the Chicagoland Chamber of Commerce. We represent more than 1,000 businesses, large and small, every industry across Chicagoland. We're thrilled to be here with the Corporate Coalition and to be one of the partners for this virtual workplace showcase, really to help companies meet the challenges in the war for talent and to advance their workplace equity objectives. Talent matters to the Chamber and the business community. Talent is our #1 asset in Chicagoland, and it gives us a competitive advantage over other parts of the country. However, this war for talent and advancing workforce equity requires us to find new and innovative pipelines for talent. And our panel today will talk about that and their success through apprenticeship programs and apprenticeship strategies. Our breakout session is Rethinking Job Requirements to Broaden the Talent Pool and Increase Equity Through Apprenticeships. We have 2 excellent panelists that represent 2 of the founders of the Chicago Apprenticeship Network. Mike Chiappetta, Director of North American and Chicago Market Development at Accenture, and Shay Robinson, Public Affairs Director for Apprenticeships at Aon. Our presenters will each introduce themselves, talk about their experiences with apprenticeships and with the Chicago Apprenticeship Network, both their successes and challenges, how they've modeled it and geared it towards what their company needs are, and then look a little bit about what the future looks like and the lessons learned. We will then have a Q&A session. You can put your questions in the chat or just kind of raise your hand with the raise your hand function, and I'll try to be on the lookout for that and call you out so that we can have some questions and answers at the end of Mike and Shay's presentation. So Mike and Shay are going to introduce themselves, give some background, give how it's worked for their companies. So let's get started. Mike and Shay, I'll turn it over to you.
Great.
Thanks, Jack.
Shay, you want to do a quick intro and
Yeah,
and then I'll go.
sure thing. Shay Robinson. Jack did an awesome introduction. I lead the external portion of our apprenticeship program at Aon, where my focus is employers, ecosystem, and expansion.
Awesome. Mike Chiappetta, Jack did a good job introducing me as well. You know, my role helps to focus on, how Accenture can be a strong corporate citizen, a strong civic engager, and then how do we engage our people. And I think the apprentice program has really, knit all of those together along with the apprentice network as, two other additional pieces to the Chicago Apprentice Network from an Accenture point of view. Juan is the talent provider for the primary source, or is the primary source of a lot of the talent that we've been bringing into Accenture and Aon's apprentice program, as well as I see my good friend Carlton Gordon from Catalyte. I want to give him a minute to talk about his program as well as we go through. But what Shay and I will do is I'm going to give a really quick spin through the Accenture program. Shay's going to do the same on the Aon program. I'm going to talk about the Chicago Apprentice Network. Shay's going to talk about how we took that show on the road. But we're going to be fast and crisp so we could leave time for questions. And if people have questions along the way, raise your hands. Let's make this informal and have fun. Sound good? Okay, so the Accenture Apprentice Program. Talent is equally distributed and opportunity is not. The apprentice program that we developed at Accenture and many other companies have done a similar program helps to more equally distribute that opportunity to more people in every zip code around the Chicagoland area and in different areas. And effectively what it's doing is creating a pipeline from community colleges and nonprofits to careers at Accenture and other companies. And when you boil it all down, it's shattering the myth that you can only get talent from top universities and top GPAs at your entry level. It's a viable talent strategy that balances social inequities, and we've proved it beyond a shadow of a doubt in Chicago, across the US, and many other companies have been following suit. So the apprentice program at Accenture started with it was a corporate social responsibility play that turned into a viable recruiting pipeline. We said, what if we expanded the internships we used to offer to folks that were going through the Europe program or IC Stars, or even folks we'd bring in from community city colleges into something that's stronger and more durable, and gives an opportunity to close that skill gap and reach to that initial rung on the corporate ladder where they could start to work their way up. So a pilot of 5 in Chicago at Accenture in our back office corporate IT function turned into Accenture bringing on 160 apprentices in Chicago alone. About 70% of those are from city colleges. And we've expanded the program starting off in our back office, which is easier because there's less demands than on our client-facing work. We've fully expanded it across the board. We are in 37 of our 47 markets in North America, and by the end of 2021, we'll have brought on 1,400 apprentices into Accenture, with 800 more planned for 2022. The way we did that is by scaling into the bread and butter of our business. Client-facing technology work, digital, interactive, strategy and consulting. We've actually kicked down the door to every area within Accenture from a client-facing point of view, as well as knocked down the door in our corporate functions. I mentioned corporate, back office IT, but also we've tested it out and had success in finance, marketing, HR, audit, information security, etc. And I think the key of all of this is we met the community colleges and tech-focused nonprofits where they were at, and took that bridge into an organization, into our organization. And effectively, we did it by reimagining your entry-level role. What used to be top university, top GPA, we've split it into 2 roles. So if you think of how you can start to design an apprentice program, take a look at your entry-level role and take a look where you have the highest number of roles and potentially the highest number of attrition at those roles. And what effectively we did is we stripped the responsibilities that we used to tag to the Northwestern University, University of Chicago, University of Illinois graduates that we plugged in at an entry-level role, let's say in technology. The responsibilities they're overqualified for, strip those off of that candidate, package that up over the aggregate of your recruiting supply, and that's your apprentice program. So we took our entry-level role and split it into 2, 4-year degree candidates, and then community colleges and nonprofits. And even if you strip 10% of responsibilities from somebody in your entry-level role across an aggregate of 100 roles, that's your apprentice class of 10 people. And I said talent is equally distributed and opportunity is not. The folks that we're bringing in from city colleges, CLC, Harper, IC Stars, Europe, Code Platoon, General Assembly, etc., all the way down the list, everybody's hungry. They have a base level of foundation from an IT point of view and have done incredibly well. In the 1,400 that we brought on so far at Accenture, 90% of the folks that started the program completed the 1-year program. Of those that completed, 90% of those converted into full-time employees, 95% retention rate with upward mobility, and diversity numbers are off the charts. So I think we've proven the viable talent strategy. The piece on balancing social inequities, if you think of when I graduated from University of Illinois, 1999 with an engineering degree, was $9,000 a year with room and board and tuition. I would pay that in full right now for my 2- and 4-year-olds, because I know the price is high right now at $34,000 for tuition for University of Illinois and $50,000 with room and board. That price of college has gone so high, and employers have stuck with, you need a 4-year degree to get an entry-level job. Tell that to somebody on the south and west side. Great news. You can go to the, you can get an entry-level job at Accenture if you clear a $200,000 financial hurdle and get a 3.5 GPA. Now the financial hurdle is $4,500 a year, Juan-ish, for city colleges if you don't get the STAR scholarship, and you come out of a 2-year degree at city colleges and a very strong IT program to a career at Accenture starting at $40,000 to $45,000 with a path to 6 figures. That's balancing social inequity. Everybody has an opportunity to get into the game. That's the Accenture program really quick. Shay, I'll flip to you to talk about Aon.
Yeah, no, Mike, that was awesome. And I think similar to Accenture's program, it works for a lot of people. So our story is quite simple. Before launching the program, we had interns working in our business units that our managers wanted to convert over to full-time employees or early career roles. And the issue that we ran into time after time, causing us to lose a lot of talent that we had already invested time in, was the 4-year degree requirement. And so we had positions that didn't necessarily need 4-year degrees, but we had that requirement tacked on. And so that's when we took some of the work we did in our with our UK apprenticeship program, teamed up with Accenture and Zurich, and made it happen. And so Aon's apprenticeship program is a 2-year Department of Labor certified program, true earn and learn model, where we partner with our local community colleges to provide the related training instruction, and local non-for-profits to provide wraparound services to our apprentices and to our managers. Additionally, each apprentice has a tailored on-the-job learning plan and joins monthly professional development sessions. Our U.S. apprenticeship program has really enabled Aon to open its aperture to the talent we historically wouldn't have considered, like Mike mentioned, to the South and West sides and those that aren't able to pay for college or, have the affordability to balance college and work life. And so we are hiring talent that doesn't have a 4-year degree. And additionally, apprentices come from diverse backgrounds, experiences, and bring these new perspectives to our firm that we otherwise wouldn't have. And so our roles are really based around insurance, but we do a lot of work within tech and HR. So, yeah.
Good.
And I do want to mention too, I think that Mike, you brought up retention rate. Within its inception, in partnership with the network, we've had a 93% retention rate since Aon has started. So the apprenticeship program.
And compare that against your 4-year degree.
Exactly, Mike. Yep.
Yeah. But the one thing I'll say is we are not Aon, Accenture, Catalyte, others are not packing up our recruiting efforts at University of Chicago and Northwestern and Illinois and Notre Dame. We're just augmenting it by splitting it out and being more efficient with it. I can touch quickly on the Chicago Apprentice Network piece, and then over to you, Shay, for where we've taken the show on the road. So the Chicago Apprentice Network was founded by Accenture, Aon, and Zurich Insurance, 3 companies that had apprentice programs since 2015, 16, and early 2017. All of us banded together and said, great program for each of us. How do we take it and elevate it? And the thought was, let's build a network, employer-led initiative that builds awareness and excitement about apprentice programs being a viable talent strategy. And then how do we take that and get more companies to follow suit? We got some slow movement back in 2017 when we launched, but thanks to the help of, and I see my good friend Paul Thompson and Juan and his team and others, we ended up building a whole bunch of excitement with employers. But if we build the excitement with employers, it's nothing without the talent sources. So Juan and team were the early adopters to build out a team to define apprentice programs by industry and by job function back in the 2017 timeframe. And then since then, we've added many more community colleges and nonprofits to the mix, and then leveraging the Chicagoland Chamber of Commerce, Executives Club, and other business and civic forums to echo and amplify the message off of there. So we got that running in 2017, and so far to date, I just tallied up all the numbers yesterday to make sure everything was updated for this call. We are at 73 employers in the Chicago Apprentice Network and 1,175 apprenticeships created to date, and that number is going to skyrocket once we get into 2022 and people roll over their budgets, and we keep rolling from there. So the end game of the Apprentice Network is helping to define and groove a successful apprentice program by every job function and industry. And when we've done that, then every company in Chicago could go and say, I'll take what Accenture's doing for technology, which there's been 10 companies of the 73 that have done it. And same thing with Aon. I'll take what Aon's doing for insurance. That's a successful playbook. Juan and team can help configure things to match what you're looking for to build a strong talent pipeline and take that successful approach and run. And, it's funny to think of like the traditional recruiting of, well, everybody's competitors. We're recruiting the same, Carlton and Accenture, or Catalyte and Accenture are in the same industry. We're recruiting the same people. I'll tell anybody, here's my job description, here's what we pay, here's what we train. It's an open book, which you would never see. I would even give my fiercest competitor, the playbook for this, so they could take it and leverage it, implement it, and create more opportunities across the board. And the one thing I'll say in terms of the balancing social inequities, from an Accenture point of view, it's hard to get this for the bigger group, but from an Accenture point of view, there are 6,000 employees in our Accenture office. Half live in Chicago, half live outside of Chicago. Of the half that live in Chicago, only 10% live on the south and west side of the city. Of our 160 apprentices we brought on to date, 40% live on the south and west side of the city. And with the investment, Juan, in the Kennedy King technology investment from a curriculum and an innovation center and everything else, that number is only going to continue to go up. So the Chicago Apprentice Network is rolling, and Shay's going to tell you about what we've been doing across the U.S.
Yeah, and so Accenture has led the way, I think, in a lot of cities already being there and established. But for Aon in 2021, that's when we expanded our U.S. program from a cohort of 25 in the Chicagoland area to over 100 apprentices across 7 cities, including Chicago. And so additionally, we now partner with 9 community colleges and 5 not-for-profit organizations. And in addition to our apprenticeship program, we partner to create local apprentice networks. This is where we partner heavily together as a network, Accenture and us, to create ecosystems for employers, apprentices, community partners, government agencies, training providers, and other not-for-profits to enable apprenticeship growth across the organization with our, with a lot of other great partners. I think something that we haven't mentioned yet is a lot of large employers that do take part in the Chicago Apprentice Network. We are working with expanding those across the nation and in our other locations. So we are fully launched in 6 cities, 6 additional cities, including New York, DC, Philly, Houston, Northern California, and Minneapolis. Mike, try to remember that. It's always like, let me see if I can remember them, hand in hand. And so, yeah, great work that has been done. We have a lot of elected officials that have been involved, that have supported the work. A lot of employers. We have great teams on both sides, and we have sort of organizations that are sometimes council, chambers of commerce that focus as the hub to really bring these ecosystems together. So, Mike, I don't know if there's anything you want to add about the ecosystem.
Only thing I would add is, this started off as employers. But what we learned is we need that infrastructure and ecosystem. And a couple of examples of how this has really scaled. I mean, Juan and team developing, a team at city colleges that all they do, Paul led it initially, all they do is focus on working with employers to build out apprentice programs and connect to talent. Along with the College of Lake County, city colleges in College of Lake County and Harper are hunting for employers to build apprentice programs, which has allowed us to scale. Jack and the chamber have focused on, working with the state of Illinois to focus on small and mid-size companies developing apprentice programs. And over the past couple of years, they've brought 35 or 40 companies and about 60 apprenticeships. And I think it's companies that are south of $1 billion a year in revenue. And to be honest, the number 73 of employers, the vast majority of that count of employers are from small and mid-sized companies. And then Discovery Partners Institute is starting to do something similar, working with companies on that. That's the way we're scaling this. It's woven into the fabric of our infrastructure of the entities that drive workforce and economic development in Chicago. It's not just a couple of employers that are bending the ear of decision makers to try to create and grow this. It's now being grown within the whole fabric of Chicago. I'll pause. Juan, what did I miss? What would you add to all of this as the architect of a lot of this with us?
Introduced Chancellor of the City Colleges, Juan Salgado, who was there at the beginning, provided the supply of talent. And really, it is a war for talent, but we have a lot of talent right at the City Colleges. And Juan was someone who championed this to help those students find opportunity. Juan, you want to
Yeah,
say a few words?
thanks, Jack. I did put in the chat a link to the op-ed that one of our students wrote. It's really her voice, which is, our voice in terms of, make sure you tap into this base of talent, right? The folks that are missing out is anyone who doesn't hire our folks. I mean, that's not from me, that's from people like, Mike and chamber members and, the team at Aon that has hired our students and worked with our students. So, I think, but I do want to, put a little challenge to this, right? For this to really deliver on, opportunity, our city has a lot more companies the size of Accenture that could do what Accenture has done. Okay. And, I just think we need to get there one way or another, and I do appreciate the work with small and mid-sized companies that the Chambers has done, because, those are often great environments for, folks to learn and grow in. And so we've had great experiences. We do have a unit we built out, and we're very committed to doing this work and getting it right. And so, it's I'm not gonna call it hard work. It's very rewarding work, but it takes some effort. Mike, I think the only thing I'd say is, you might want to talk about, the early effort versus the results you're getting from it, right? The payoff is totally there.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like if you knew then what you know now, what kind of lessons learned have there been that have made it scale and made it successful?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would say that, getting leadership buy-in from the top is critical. I think if you get the leadership buy-in from the top, the rest is easy. If you need help with the leadership buy-in, leveraging, executives above Shay and I, to have a conversation with your senior leadership to say, we're doing this, you should do it too. Sometimes when you hear from another company or a peer in your industry, that will help to sway it. I think the lesson learned of the, looking at your roles around responsibilities and carving out and splitting the two, that was a piece that was very important to learn along the way. And I think the third piece is trying to figure out at what education level your company is comfortable with in bringing somebody in. And the example I'll use is top university, top GPA, right? They're going to hit the ground sprinting. Somebody from city colleges with an associate's degree, it's 2 years less of education. They're going to hit the ground jogging. Within 3 months, 6 months, they're sprinting. If you bring somebody in like Aon that has a high school degree that is just starting their associate's degree, they are probably going to hit the ground walking. So if you got to set the expectations, if somebody takes the Aon program and says, I'm going to take somebody from high school and I'm going to plug them in and they're going to be amazing, their relative comparison is somebody with a 4-year degree. It's going to be a mismatch of expectations. And you have to make sure that what your business is ready to take on in terms of the shorter investment we put in by taking talented folks from city colleges that have gone through a 2-year degree, then they go into our program, they're jogging. So sure, they're not as fast as a 4-year degree, but iron sharpens iron in great organizations and they're running fast. But if you take somebody like the Aon program, where they start off with a high school degree and they're working 28 hours a week and going to school 12 hours a week at city colleges, the productivity is going to be slower. But as what Shay mentioned, the numbers at Accenture of completion and conversion to retention are high. Theirs are higher because they are taking a long view on the talent development. They're developing those folks that by the end of the 2 years, you walk away with an associate's degree, you have 2 years experience, and those folks are perfectly molded to be leaders, future leaders at Aon. So I think that's the piece you need to set expectations and really talk through of people's expectations are at 4-year degree. Do you go to associate degree, or I'd even say slightly below it, like certificate-based nonprofit? And then the last one would be like high school degree while you're earning as well. You gotta figure out where you're at in terms of the investment you're ready to put in, set the right expectations, and go from there. Does that make sense?
And I think one more thing I would add to that, Mike, is like, you really don't know the risk that you're taking on someone with a 4-year degree either. Like, I mean, I had a 4-year degree, and you get into a job and you're like, I still don't know what I'm doing. And so you still have to invest that training and resources into that individual. And like Mike said, I think the eldest person in our program, I think, is 60 years old. And if they only had a high school degree, we still, invite them to join the program. So it's a real unique talent strategy for both Aon and Accenture.
Now, Shay and Mike, I've heard you both talk about this before. You got the CEO buy-in, you're there, and then it gets to the HR department, and well, this isn't the way we've done it. We've done it differently. Why is it so important now to do this? I mean, there's a war for talent out there. Why is it important? Why is it to the economic benefit to the company to do this?
Well, I think in the great resignation that we're in right now, it is a war for talent. And if you think of all the money that gets put into recruiting top university and top GPA folks, for them to leave in 3 months or 6 months, and all of that investment in that person is lost, there's a gap in productivity and so on and so forth. I think it's essential to do something like this. So you elevate those 4-year degree folks to do more challenging things so they don't get bored. And then you build the bottom of your organization with folks that are chomping at the bit to do those types of activities to build durable skills that they could have a strong foundation and move up forward from it. And I think in the balancing social inequities, the one unfortunate thing that has been a propeller for what we've been doing is the murder of George Floyd. Because I think we were ahead of, balancing social inequities before what happened last summer, that this is something now that employees are screaming to their CEOs, you need to do something to balance social inequities. And instead of just throwing money at the problem, create jobs. This is an opportunity to balance those social inequities where you see the needle move directly instead of a hope that it gets moved if you throw money somewhere that you don't know where it's going. Money is important. Jobs are things you can directly do as a CEO. And I think we have given CEOs a playbook of what to do. They just need to allocate the budget, direct their CHROs, and hit the ground running.
Yeah. And Mike, you said everything perfectly. And I think the thing about it is like, you have to move with the workforce. The workforce is not the same as it was even 2 years ago before the pandemic happened. And I think being open to that and understanding that changes is a major part. And I think even with the HR portion, we sit on a lot of calls with our head of HR, is we didn't create new funds for this. We reallocated the funds that we had for our early career positions, removed some of those requirements, and now those positions are available. So there are different ways that you can tap into that with your CHROs.
So we have a few minutes left here, and we have a quiet crew except for Juan, but if anybody has any questions, please raise your hand or put in the chat. I'll have one more question while people are thinking about that. So I'm a company, Shay and Mike, I want to do this, but I'm not big like Accenture or Aon. I can't afford 25 or 20 apprentices. And the wraparound services, what are those? How can I afford those?
Yep.
What do you say to those companies that maybe they can do 5 apprentices, 10, and those economies of scale for the wraparound maybe isn't there? Who do they go to for that? What resources can they tap into?
I mean, I'd say in our model, the Accenture model, taking folks that have an associate's degree or completed a certificate at a nonprofit, we actually don't leverage like a 1 million degrees. We love 1 million degrees, but we're taking folks that have made it through an associate degree or a tech-focused nonprofit like IC Stars or General Assembly or anything along those lines. So you don't need a wraparound service. That's not a requirement. You take somebody that has a little bit more education or pieces under their, in their resume and under their belt, and we can give you a job description, roles and responsibilities, training, and everything else that you could plug one apprentice in. And Jack, obviously, this well, that out of those 30 or 40 companies that the chamber has developed, a lot of those folks took one apprentice. Some of them took 1 apprentice a couple of years ago, then they took 3, then they took 5, and you figure out where you can shatter the 4-year degree requirement and keep rolling from there. Now, the wraparound services are important for, you know, Shay and Aon, because if you're taking somebody with a high school degree, they're going to need some help rounding out their work life, professional, you know, personal balance in doing that. And that's very important as well.
Spot on, Mike. Yep.
We have Leanna with her hand raised, and then we have a couple questions that we'll try to get to in the next couple minutes before we finish.
Rapid fire. So does your program partner with an existing internship program as well? That's a great question. You know, I think that our apprentice program kind of took our internship and scaled it. So we used to do a lot of internships with Year Up and IC Stars and others. And we basically took those internships and expanded those into apprenticeships. So the places we were doing like volunteering, coaching, and mentoring and one-off internships, we turned those into our talent strategy off of there. Now, the key thing is, on an internship point of view, like internships for the 4-year degree recruits that somebody would come in after like their junior year, that's totally separate. And I actually see that as, you know, the internship from somebody in a 4-year degree is basically an extended recruiting effort, right? You want to show them a great experience over the summer so that if and when they get a full-time job, they say, you know what, I loved hanging out with the folks at Accenture. I'm going to go back there instead of those competitors that are in the market. So that's like, think of that as like totally separate. And this piece is really, you know, focused on, you know, building that talent, that durable talent from community colleges and nonprofits.
Yeah, and we do still host internships. We have a 10-week program, and they usually are rising seniors. So we do make offers to them at the end for full-time roles. We will have post-graduation.
So the one question to try to go rapid fire here on SHRM, we love SHRM. They're just starting to develop in Chicago. We don't do as much from an apprentice program in HR in Chicago. We should, you know, it's an opportunity to do more. SHRM is awesome in everything that they're doing, and we will make them a bigger, you know, spotlight in Chicago as they start to put their roots down in Chicago a little bit more.
Leanna, do you have a quick question? We got a minute to go.
I don't know if I'll get it in a minute. I was just curious about, as you expand, if there's usually in a city, do you start with one kind of partner that is really critical early on? You talked about CBOs, community colleges.
I think it's wherever you have an establishment. Okay, 57 seconds. Okay. Wherever you have, if you have established partnerships at nonprofits and CBOs, great, start there. If not, every community college we've brought in has had a ton of hungry talent. So, you know, what Juan and team are doing at city colleges is like, they set the bar for what's happening in community colleges, but community colleges is a perfect place to go because that's really the melting pot of your community. And there's a lot of hungry folks that would, you know, really strive if given the right opportunity.
Well, great. Thanks everybody for attending the breakout session. Thank you, Mike Chiappetta and Shay Robinson from Aon and Mike from Accenture. And please go back to the main session for closeout, and please do the survey after.